the court has once again denied bail to Sean Diddy Combs. This means the rapper and music mogul, who has been held in the Metropolitan Detention Center since his September arrest on federal sex crimes charges, will remain in custody indefinitely. Despite hopes of reuniting with his family for Thanksgiving, Combs will not be granted release. The decision came from Judge Arun Subramania, who is currently overseeing the case. The judge had yet to rule on the bail issue following a hearing last week where both sides presented their arguments. The decision was issued late on Wednesday, just before Thanksgiving Eve.
The court has evaluated each of the factors that it must consider under the relevant law. 1, nature and circumstances of the offense charged. 2, weight of the evidence against the person. 3, history and characteristics of the person. And 4, nature and seriousness of the danger that would be posed by the person's release. And it also says that the court has also reviewed the information submitted by Combs and the government across all 3 bail hearings in this case.
As you may recall, Sean Combs was denied bail not only by a magistrate judge, but also by a district court judge.
Subramanian writes, the court finds that the government has shown by clear and convincing evidence, so that's the standard, that no condition or combination of conditions will reasonably assure the safety of the community. In support of this finding, the court provides the following reasons.
First, Judge Subramanian reviews the allegations outlined in the indictment to emphasize the seriousness of the case.
The indictment charges Combs with serious and violent crimes.
By the way, as we know, he is facing charges of racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation for the purpose of prostitution.
Subramanian writes, it alleges that for decades, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on the employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice.
The decision goes on to detail additional allegations, with Judge Subramanian further elaborating on the case.
Writes, the government has presented direct evidence of Combs' violence.
The ruling also references a 2016 videotape in which Sean Combs is allegedly seen assaulting his ex-girlfriend, Cassandra Ventura, in a hotel hallway. This footage, which was made public by CNN several months ago, has been a key piece of evidence in the case, and we've discussed it extensively. It is important to note that Cassandra Ventura is the individual who filed the initial lawsuit against Combs in November 2023, sparking the series of lawsuits and criminal charges that followed. In addition to citing the 2016 video as evidence of Combs' violent tendencies, the judge also points to text messages exchanged between Combs and victim 1, who is believed to be Cassandra Ventura.
Text messages from the hours and days following the 2016 Intercontinental Hotel incident say, I have a black eye and a fat lip. You are sick for thinking it's okay to do what you've done. I still have crazy bruising. From there, Judge Subramanian also says there is evidence supporting a serious risk of witness tampering. For example, Combs initiated and had unexplained communications with witness 1, who was subpoenaed to testify before the grand jury in June 2024, and in fact testified on July 25th, 2024. Combs was represented by counsel during this time, and they have offered an explanation for some of these communications, but they could not explain them all. For instance, Combs' efforts to call and text witness 1 even after his grand jury testimony, or Combs deleted texts with this witness.
That's concerning, right? Contacting a witness before you even knew they were a grand jury witness could be an issue, but doing so after their grand jury testimony is definitely a bigger problem.
From there, Judge Subramanian says there is evidence that Combs violated Bureau of Prisons regulations during his pretrial detention to obscure his communications with third parties.
We've discussed this at length, how Sean Combs was allegedly using other inmates' PIN numbers to make calls, utilizing a private messaging service to contact people, and even engaging in three-way phone calls. The allegation is that not only was he violating the rules, but he was also reaching out to potential witnesses in the case, possibly trying to influence them or even sway potential jurors through a social media campaign. This is significant because Judge Subramanian writes,
"The court makes no determination that the content of Combs' communications through these channels was improper."
This is intriguing, and it was something discussed during the hearing. Is it truly a problem if he's posting things or having others post on his behalf on social media? Judge Subramanian says he's not focusing on the content of the communications themselves, but as we mentioned in a previous sidebar, the real issue is the blatant disregard for the rules. That's what he highlights as the problem.
However, his willingness to skirt BOP rules in a way that would make it more difficult for his communications to be monitored is strong evidence that the court cannot be reasonably assured as to the sufficiency of any conditions of release, especially given that they occurred when Combs was seeking bail and when he knew the government's concerns about witness tampering and obstruction were front and center.
It's particularly concerning that he's engaging in this behavior when he's already accused of obstruction and is under the government's scrutiny. What's also noteworthy is that the court expressed skepticism about Sean Combs being granted bail. Judge Subramanian at least considered what bail or pretrial release might look like, engaging in a back-and-forth discussion. Combs' attorneys argued that he has an apartment in New York and would have private security. Here's what the court had to say about that.
The court doubts the sufficiency of any conditions that place trust in Combs and individuals in his employ, like a private security detail, to follow those conditions.
It's clear the court was swayed by the prosecution's argument that Combs' private security team could be vulnerable to manipulation. This next part is quite fascinating. At the start of the hearing, there was a back and forth where Judge Subramanian questioned Combs' attorneys about a discrepancy. You might remember that materials were photographed from Combs' jail cell, and the defense claimed this was a violation of attorney-client privileges. The defense argued that several legal pads labeled legal were among the materials, but the judge raised a discrepancy regarding whether these pads actually said legal.